To talk politics and policy, Francesca and I welcome back from California our good friend Michael Reagan, the son of the late Ronald Reagan, the 40th President of the United States. As great a president as your dad was, Michael, that's how great it is to have you join us from time to time here on America's Forum, and we welcome you here.
Thank you, JD. Appreciate it. Thank you.
Michael, the New York Times was not a fan of your father's presidency, and the New York Times is not really pleased with any real Republican response to what President Obama has tried to get done. Are they being hypercritical of Mitch McConnell, or is Mitch in a situation where laying out a vision of where Republicans may head if they win the upcoming midterms is perhaps a little too optimistic at this point?
No, I mean, they're both doing their job. I mean, Mitch McConnell's got to be optimistic and hopefully optimistic about what's going to happen in November in the election with the Republicans possibly taking over the Senate of the United States. New York Times is doing their job, being critical of Mitch McConnell and critical of conservatives and critical of Republicans. So, I mean, they're both doing their job at this time. Mitch McConnell can't walk into a room and be just down. He's got to be uplifting. But what's going on in this country, as you go around this country and talk outside the Beltway, is people are critical of everybody in Washington, D.C. at this point, not only Barack Obama, but critical of everybody. So if the Republicans want to take the Senate of the United States, they have to find a way to work together, not look at these primaries and say, well, my guy won, your guy lost. They've got to find a way to come together and make sure they vote on Election Day in November if they want to take over the Senate. And Mitch McConnell's also really got to put out a plan of what the Republicans will do. If you elect us, this is what we plan to do, and see if they can get the rest of America to join in and show up on Election Day.
Michael, do you think the GOP can retake the Senate?
Do I think? Oh, I think it's very possible to take back the Senate of the United States. But again, it's going to be really up to Republicans. Remember, in the last presidential election, 25% of evangelicals stayed home, and Mitt Romney lost the election. You have Tea Party people within the Republican Party. You have libertarians. You have conservatives. You have the grand old party, if you will. They have to find a way to work together and say, listen, I may be against you at one level, but I'm for you because you have an R after your name. They have to believe in the Reagan 80-20 rule. And if they believe in the Reagan 80-20 rule, then we'll probably take back the Senate of the United States. If they don't believe in the 80-20 rule, and it's the 100% in my court rule, then no, they will not take back the Senate of the United States.
Michael, as you were laying out a strategy, it sounded very familiar to me. Back in 20 years ago, House Republicans ran on a contract with America, and it sounds as if you're suggesting to Mitch McConnell and others that they resurrect the notion of a contract with America for this midterm election.
Yeah, make it a national election. I mean, you're right. Newt Gingrich and I was an honorary member, as was Rush Limbaugh. We're the only honorary members of the 104th Congress back in 1995 when they were sworn in. And he did have a contract with America. He made it a national election. The Republicans right now, I think, need something of that nature to bring everybody, in fact, on board, something that everybody can rally around and get behind on Election Day. This is a major election coming up in November. Who's going to control the Senate of the United States for the next 6 years? It's really an important election, and it's important that we have a plan in place of what we will do. Remember, Barack Obama won his first election because when the Republicans controlled the House and the Senate, they overspent. They didn't do the things they said they would do, and it caused Barack Obama to become president of the United States. This time, they're going to lay out a plan and then do what they promised they will do.
Michael, are Democrats in vulnerable seats going to have to distance themselves somewhat from President Obama, for example, Kay Hagan in North Carolina?
Well, I think right now you see them distancing themselves from Barack Obama, trying to pretend they didn't vote for Obamacare, trying to pretend they didn't support him on all the other issues they supported him on, and especially with that that press conference yesterday that he gave about I don't have a plan. I mean, you have the president in the last 2 weeks, first of all, tells us about a failed plan to get Foley out of the Middle East, and then he tells us he doesn't have a plan. Well, here's an FYI for the President of the United States. Vladimir Putin has a plan. Here's another thing for him, an eye-opener. ISIS has a plan. The President of the United States stands up and announces he has no plan. That is just absolutely outrageous how important it is that, in fact, there's adult supervision back in Washington, D.C., brought to you by the Peter Kings, brought to you by the Republican Party.
Michael, we also want to talk about the threat here of ISIS. We know that the terror group has listed Times Square and, obviously, Las Vegas as targets. What do you think we could do to stop them at this stage, and what could Obama learn specifically from your dad?
Well, I think what you learn is the fact that what you could do is don't say anything. I mean, Ronald Reagan did not have a press conference and announce when he was going to fly into Tripoli in the middle of the night and take out 2 homes that Muammar Gaddafi owned in Tripoli. He didn't tell the Congress of the United States, which JD will tell you, he didn't tell the Congress of the United States he was going into Grenada till they were already on the ground. Sometimes it's just best to say nothing. And what you have is a president who tries to tell you everything, and a media that wants all the information, and an electorate who thinks they know more than anybody else. I think the best thing the president could do is do something in the middle of the night to let ISIS know we're alive and well, we know where you are, and you know something? There is no border between Syria and Iraq. Get over it. If you need to go into Syria to take out command and control of ISIS, do it in the middle of the night. Don't have a press conference. Do what Ronald Reagan did. Do it, then have your press conference what you just did. Don't tell everybody what you're going to do and then be surprised when nobody's there when the bomb lands on top of you.
Theodore Roosevelt talked about walking softly and carrying a big stick. Your dad used to talk about peace through strength. The display of the American might would go a long way toward serving as, I guess, a reason for our enemies not to even think about taking adventurous strikes against the United States.
Well, it's America. It's America at this point in time showing that they're interested. Right now, America shows that they're absolutely disinterested. When the President of the United States says, I don't have a plan. And like I said, I mean, cannot anybody watching this show right now tell you what Putin's plan is? Cannot anybody watching this right now tell you what ISIS's plan is? And so you have a president who says in the middle of all this, I don't have a plan? You've had 8 months to put together a coalition to do something. I would suggest, Mr. President, doing something.
I want to ask you, Michael, even Rachel Maddow took Democrats to task this week for what she calls wussitude on ISIS airstrikes. What is your opinion on that?
Well, I mean, those of you, Rachel Maddow, when you've got people on the left questioning all the things that are going on, you've got some real problems in Washington, D.C. But I think the President of the United States still spends more time. What's he doing this weekend? Fundraisers. If he was as interested in foreign policy and domestic policy as he is in fundraisers, my God, we'd run the world. But he's doing fundraisers again. He's more interested in raising money, and he's more interested in being liked. And I think maybe one of his problems is he's worried about that Nobel Peace Prize maybe being taken away at the end of his presidency that was given to him prematurely at the beginning of his presidency. No, the President of the United States needs to understand this. The world works on respect. Putin has no respect for him. ISIS leadership has no respect for him. He's losing respect all over the globe, but now he's losing respect in the United States of America. The world runs on respect, not likability, respectability. And right now, America has none.
Thanks, Michael. We appreciate it.